Oh boy. This is like being caught in between a very over maelstrom. And by over, I don't mean it's done, but it's something that a lot of people have talked about. I've talked about it a couple different times, and that's, of course, the whole rock is dead idea. We're not doing that again, obviously, by the title of the video, but one of the people that was outspoken against Gene Simmons was Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters. And this is their new album, Sonic Highways, which just came out. Now, the Foo Fighters, of course, are a legend all of their own. This is a band that was birthed out of Nirvana after the tragic end to Kurt Cobain's life by Dave Grohl, who is a member of Nirvana. And he has been able to forge his own identity, and his band has been able to forge their own identity in the whole rock landscape, and they've been able to do so very well with a lot of success. And they have become one of the more well-respected rock bands of this generation. These are songs that you always hear on the radio. This is a band that is constantly kind of in the spotlight. And Dave is always doing something that's kind of ridiculous and off-kilter, but it always tends to have a light side to it, and always tends to really prove a point, and it's usually one that's a positive point. Sonic Highways is an 8-track album, which immediately I think about albums of old. I think about old rock albums from the 70s and things like that, where 8 tracks was pretty much what you had, because, of course, back then, there's a format known as 8 tracks, which is exactly what you think it is. Not all bands used all 8 tracks, but you know the point. But because of this 8-track affair for the Foo Fighters, there's a little bit of risk. The one thing that made Wasted Light such a great album was the fact that it was not afraid to be a little bit more than itself. It was not afraid to be more than just a garage rock album, a dirty, dusty, old-style, garage-style rock album. But it was one that had tight and good songwriting that really felt like the Foo Fighters were still within their own pre-described and pre-prescribed mold of songwriting, without really feeling as though each and every one of these songs went right into that department, subscribed, liked, and commented, and felt the need to do the same thing over and over again. Sonic Highways has been led up by a couple of singles, such as Congregation, Something from Nothing, and The Feast and the Famine. And there's one thing that I really felt about The Feast and the Famine, is the fact that it sounds like just about every other Foo Fighters single that I've ever heard. Now, that's not a bad thing, mainly because the Foo Fighters are a strong singles band. They're a band that's able to really captivate an audience with some very heavy singles, ones that really have a great identity to them and really just define rock and alternative in 2014 very well, or whatever year they happen to be released. But the idea and the concept and the way in which these are writ are very pre-prescribed. It's becoming formulaic. It's becoming almost expected. And that's a bad thing. It's a good song, but it's a song that we've heard before under many other different names. And that's actually the biggest flaw that I feel that Sonic Highways has. I feel that the Foo Fighters had a tremendous opportunity with this 8-track album, this idea of Sonic Highways, especially on the heels of everything Dave said against Gene Simmons and the whole rock is dead debate, to really wow audiences and really show just how correct that Dave is, and that his own band really perpetuates that idea, perhaps better than any. And to a certain degree, they are able to accomplish that because this is a rock album, 100%, and for somebody who's brand new to the fold, somebody who knows nothing of the Foo Fighters, who does not know the Foo Fighters from any other band, this will come off as a fairly decent album. This will come off as a fairly decent representation of where rock and roll is, and where alternative rock specifically is in the year 2014. It's something that does have a heavy side to it. It's something that can be melodic at times. It's almost as though the Foo Fighters decided that whenever they wanted to be heavy, they channeled Wasted Light, and whenever they wanted to kind of dip back to that, melodious side, they decided to really span their 2000s catalog and really kind of draw a lot of inspiration from that. But again, it's nothing that feels like it's breaking any sonic ground, so to speak. They had a great opportunity on this record. Track number 4 is entitled "What Do I Do?" or "What Did I Do?" / "God Is My Witness." A two-part song. Two-part songs are usually always fantastic. They usually always have a great amount of exploration to them. It's very rare that you see this in the rock and roll environment these days, so it was definitely a song that I was looking forward to, and I was very, very let down by it. This is a song that has a bit of a theatrical element to it, but it still just feels like two Foo Fighters songs back to back. And given some of the other rock albums that we've had come out this year, given that some of the other releases from big names that have come out, this just doesn't fit very well in the pantheon. This is not one that really is leading the pack. It's instead one that just feels like it's within the congregation, kind of staring at all of the people who are at the pulpit of the Chapel of Rock, and kind of just taking in the sermon as opposed to leading the sermon themselves. The second half of this album, songs such as "Outside in the Clear," "Subterranean," and "I Am a River," are a little bit better. This feels a little bit more like the Foo Fighters trying to break away from that singles mold that the first 4 songs kind of felt lumped into, and kind of exploring themselves a little bit more. This is where you see a little bit more of the 2000s work, and I especially like the channel "I Am a River" for that. For a final track, this is really a great song that's delivered a little too late. It's a fantastic track. It's one where I feel that the band really reaches pinnacle diversity for this album. It's one that definitely registers as a true highlight. But as I said, it's just one that comes a little too late. The first 7 tracks on this album are, fairly decent, but that's just about it. It's all things that feel very expected. You expect a delivery from the Foo Fighters on this record, and you get a delivery from the Foo Fighters, but it feels like a record that's not breaking any sort of new ground, and for the time that it took for this record to be delivered to us, you would have expected a little bit more from it. Unfortunately, I look at this album, and I don't see much memory from it. I look at this album and I don't see the same amount of replay value that I've experienced from some of their albums in the past. I channel Wasted Light so much because it was just a great album to just put on and jam to, and then maybe put away. A couple of days later, put it back on, jam again. Or in my position where I listen to a lot of music at work, it's one that I could stand listening to over and over again on repeat, and it would actually make my work days feel pretty darn good. This album doesn't have that same feeling to it. I grew tired of it after playing through number 2.5 to 3. It was one where I just felt like the material was dated. Dated within the Foo Fighters' own discography. Little ground was broken, little was done to kind of push forward. They delivered a rock album. It's just not one that's all of that memorable. I would probably give this album a 76 out of 100. As a rock album, it actually does its job. It definitely exhibits what rock and roll can be, albeit it's one that definitely feels like it has some cuts that are mainly primed for the radio. The ones that definitely are going to drive the sales, I guess would be the best way to put it. Whereas the rest of them are just kind of, actually, not all that great. Like I said, the second half of the album definitely ramps it up and gets a little bit better. But this just feels tired. It feels dated. It feels done before. And it's not something that feels all of that true. Almost as though the Foo Fighters could sit down and maybe think about their sound, how they could evolve it a little bit, but why should they? The Foo Fighters are a huge rock band, and they're getting to the point in their career where they really don't need to do that in order to deliver a passable rock album. Their legend and legacy is already secured. It's not as though they need to go and deliver the album of the year each and every year. Though I can probably tell you that some people will have this as their number 1 album of the year. And there'll probably be some publications that will. And that to me will feel a bit jaded and fake, considering albums such as Supermodel by Foster the People or, the last Jack White album, Lazaretto, definitely feel like it has a lot more in the way of at least fresh idea and originality to it. But those are just 2 examples. What did you guys think about Sonic Highways? What do you think about where the Foo Fighters are right now? Does this actually look like, or make it look like, that Dave Grohl has a bit of egg on his face? Or did he actually do exactly what he said and actually prove that rock is still alive and well? It just maybe isn't necessarily being forefronted by the Foo Fighters off of this record, but they're the band that's kind of acting as the godfather, the elder statesman, or at least one of them. What are your opinions? Give them to me in the comments below. I'll talk to you next time.